long in law has lazy days. That's anyways what happens. And, usually it's kind of hard to get out of bed. Any other politicians advocating for that? We should know. If they don't have, at least they tell us. Okay. Last week we beginning our. Let's just close the door. Just as a man can his hands prior to washing, when he wakes up after sleep in the morning, a woman, there's no difference between that. We explained that the basis of this impurity, which we named, what was the name? Bas Melech, remember? Bas Melech. Yeah. So this impurity called Bas Melech, it attaches to a body that contains a godly soul, so men and women are equal here. We went through regarding children, we went through a number of the restrictions that apply prior to washing and those that don't. We're going to just conclude this subject with a few more points that we didn't mention last week, and we're going to move on to other aspects of washing hands in the morning. We discussed that based on the Zohar, we do not walk 4 amos before washing hands in the morning. What does a person do if they do not have water available next to them? Now this can happen if you fell asleep on your couch, even if you fell asleep for a half hour. In your head you're taking a nap, but in Bas Melech's head there's food available. They don't view it as just a nap. When the cookie jar is left on the table unopened and you went to sleep for a half hour, the kid's not going to take it because their mom is only taking a nap. Depends on the kids, but right? It's available. Bas Melech comes along, even if it's just your nap at 8 o'clock at night after Shkia. It's already nighttime. Bas Melech comes to the hands, and you didn't prepare for yourself Nagel Wasser because you're used to only preparing Nagel Wasser when you go to sleep for the night. So what do you do about walking 4 amos? So if you have someone available, you can ask them, can you please bring me a basin with water? And you can wash next to wherever you are. But what if that's not possible? You're alone, or you fell asleep on a bus. You're traveling on a plane, on a bus overnight, and you fell asleep. And you fell asleep for a half hour, a real sleep. So in such a case, Bas Melech comes and is now on the hands. What do you do? So in such a situation,
if you wake up in between, it's not a full 30 minutes?
If you wake up in between, that's what the horse's sleep is. You just slept like a horse. People think you slept like a horse. Wow, that means I really slept well. No, you slept like a horse means you really got a bad night's sleep. That's like sleeping with a nursing baby. Right? Yeah, every few minutes, well, hopefully not every few minutes, but every once in a while you wake up again and the sleep is very intermittent. So in such a case, that's considered a horse's sleep, and it's not enough to bring tumah. But if you slept for a half hour, a good sleep, then certainly in that case, the tumah is there. If it's at nighttime, and a person would have to wash his hands. So we have 2 different approaches amongst the poskim of what to do. Some poskim say that in such a situation, you should run for it. Run away from the tumah as soon as possible. Make a run for the kitchen, make a run for the sink, and wash your hands. Others say no, go super slow. Walk every 4 amos and stop. So you're going to walk every 6 feet, stop, 6 feet, stop, 6 feet, stop. You're not going to go 4 amos in one shot. We find this similarly regarding someone who on Shabbos discovered that he was carrying his wallet, and he's in an area without a native. What does he do? Do you walk less than 4 amos at a time, or do you make a run for it?
I thought you drop it out.
And have your bank account emptied when someone finds your credit card.
Doesn't sound
you
good.
can't
That's
call.
what you're supposed to do.
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
Chachamim knew if they would have, in their situation, enacted the rabbinical prohibitions of carrying, that the person would transgress. So because Adam Bol Abamayne, the person is panicky when it comes to his money, they therefore wavered a number of their rabbinical restrictions, such as not to carry less than 4 amos, and such as not to make a run. So you can make a run for it. People see you jogging on Shabbos. What's he doing jogging at night? It's already, but he's jogging now because he wants to get rid of his wallet, which he is carrying. As he is jogging, he then takes his wallet out of his pocket and he throws it with a shinoi into his private property. So we see here that there's different ways of the walking issue, how it's dealt with in halacha.
The same thing if you had cash in your pocket, like 100 shekels, for example?
Yeah, what's the difference?
Well, it's good to know, because I heard the opposite. Like, I heard that you just drop it out of your pocket, and that's it, you lose that 100 shekels.
No, you can.
And if there's an error, there's no
Did the
problem.
person who told you that will see you next to you at the time? And did he go with you, or did he stay behind?
I don't remember who told me. I just remember hearing it.
Getting my investigative glasses on here to
If
figure
there's an
this
error,
one
it's not a problem, you can just continue carrying
There's
it.
an
until you're
error.
done.
That's a different story. There's no Isser of Eitzof, there's an error. The only Isser is so it's not clear. Clearly, the halacha is you walk. Walk to your house, put it in. There's no problem here of carrying. There's also no problem with muktzah because it's not in your hands. But in a case where there's no error, then it's a big problem. But that's what you have to do.
What if you find... I found money on Shabbos and
There's
I
a
walked
big
by
difference
it. It's hard.
between someone who fears that this money that he lost and somebody who found something and it's not even his. Is lenient even in such a case. He says even if you find money, you're allowed to pick it up at a set of time. Yep.
Oh, wow, that's good to know. Man, I wish I knew.
We hold that way?
We do not hold that way, no.
Oh.
Many poskim argue one of the Rambam's tough ruling. This one's a tshuva in a number that he wrote in Mishnah Torah. We have responses that were later written due to attacks on his position. And here too, so that one of the main attacks. I'm just going to close this door. One of the main attacks against the Rambam is that all of his rulings were written in the same exact level of authority. So you can't differentiate between a Talmudic ruling that is really unanimous, a ruling that is based on a specific Rishon or Goyin, or a ruling that's his own personal understanding. You can't differentiate. And in fact, most halacha books are written that way. That's why this book was written. See, all this is the Alter Rebbe. All this is later authority. So you know that there's a difference between major Rambam received a lot of letters of complaint on a lot of different issues, and this is a classical example. This halacha, a number of Rabbi voiced their wonderment at the Rambam. How can he say such a thing even by Frida, even by Nainam the Tefker that you found on the street? And the Rambam in his Tshuva, when he discusses his reply, basically says, this is the way I understand the Gemara. Those who understand it differently have the right to understand it differently. And bottom line, that's the halacha. We do not really like his opinion. If it's an item that you found, you can guard there, you can stay to the rest of Shabbos, right? So you found the ticket of the $1.6 billion Mega Millions.
Oh, so you couldn't do it.
You see it on the floor. You found the winning lottery ticket. Give me a break. You're not going to stand there and guard.
You're going to stand there and
hide
guard. You're going to sit on it.
Can you hide it, and also why not have the intention of returning it to the person who lost it?
No,
How often is it mitzvah
correct,
to
but
return
because there's a problem, there's an
No, when
issue of
it's money,
carrying.
then it's not considered.
There's a carrying prohibition here.
But is it
The
money?
Chachamim, the sages, did not waiver that prohibition in such a
They lost
situation.
it, they're going to count it as
I mean, but pushing dirt.
You can use your foot to, put it under some mud, yes, some earth. But then there's a problem of digging. You have to avoid digging. It's not so simple what to do. Now, if you're in an area with an Eruv, you can say pick it up with a shinoi, with a, like this, and then carry it like that.
Oh, you can do that? Oh,
Yeah,
I
but
would
in
do
an
that.
area
Scratch up my
without an
hands
Eruv,
For the 200 shekels.
an area without an Eruv, it's a problem. You're stuck.
Wow.
Good thing we got the area with an error. Problem is the 1.6 mega million.
Okay. So bottom line is, in this situation, we rule like the second approach. One should walk less than 4 amos at a time. Okay, every 4 amos, basically.
How long do you have to pause for?
What's that?
How long do you have to pause in between each 4 hours?
Just even for a moment, it's fine. Even for a moment, it is mutter. That's the main ruling, as I said, not to do the run for it, but rather to walk in a way that you stop. Regarding a bus or a car, the same thing applies there. If you're able to do the 4 amos trick, that's the best thing. If you're not able to, you're not able to. You know, if the person's not able to, it's understandable. In case of oinus, and setting up a negovasser under your seat in the airplane is not always the easiest thing to accomplish. I once saw a sounding match on the plane of a guy who did it. For whatever reason, the stewardess took it very, I don't know, she was very angry and upset. What are you doing? But I'm just saying sometimes it brings up some friction. Maybe because she's had experience with it spilling, I have no idea.
Why wouldn't you have just a bottle of water?
Where are you dumping it?
Right. Right, that's right. Yeah. Where are you dumping it into? That's an important question.
Yeah.
You know. Okay.
Still difficult. That's right.
Maybe she works for Bas Melech, a stewardess. I have no idea what her story, what her issue was. But she made a very big deal about it. The funny thing was, she was screaming at him for disturbing people, what he's doing, and the whole row was waking up because of her noise. Anyways. Okay. We're now going to move on.
Like one question.
Yeah.
Could you address where to dump the water after you've washed your hands? Because we get into fights with our guests because they want to dump it in the kitchen sink rather than the toilet.
Right. So that we will discuss in the next chapter. We're going to now go into, until now we just discussed the restrictions. We're now going to go into a number of other details of the laws of washing hands in the morning. That's going to be included. Okay, so thus far, what we discussed in the way of washing hands is just that there's certain restrictions that apply until you go ahead and do so. But just because he has spirit on his hands, which can only come off with water, mean that that is a mitzvah of which he says a bracha over. For example, mayim achreinim, which men do after a meal, and in Talmudic time also women did, right, sodomite salt that's on it, which can blind the eye. Since the whole reason is to get rid of a dangerous situation, no blessing is enacted. If you kill a scorpion, you're doing the mitzvah. Do you say a blessing? Of course not. There's no blessing to say when you're killing something that's a threat. There's no blessing to say when you're removing a threat to the public. So to here, why should a blessing be said over washing hands in the morning? And there's a few reasons brought down. The basic gist of it is that the sages enacted that aside from the aspect of restrictions applying until you wash hands, they want the Jew to sanctify himself, just like the Kohanim would sanctify themselves in the temple before they began their temple service. They were required to wash their hands and wash their feet before, which is a aspect of sanctification. They would also go to mikveh, but that was just the minhag. But the letter of the law, they had to sanctify their hands and feet if they wanted to serve in the temple. So too, we are considered like a kain to Hashem. We serve God every single day. Our daily life is the temple service of that day. And therefore they enacted an obligation on every Jew to wash their hands in the morning for the sake of serving Hashem. Now, what specifically is this referring to? Shachris. You're washing your hands for the morning prayers, just like the Kohen washed his hands before he served the Karban Tamid, the morning sacrifices. So that's basically the halacha, that we wash our hands in the morning with a blessing. One is to get rid of the impurity. The second is as a sign of sanctity to begin our temple service of the morning prayers. So if you say that women are not obligated to daven Shachris and Mincha, then maybe they're also not obligated to wash hands in the morning with a blessing, to get rid of the impurity of Bas Melech, to get rid of these restrictions they are. But how can they say a bracha if they weren't commanded to do it for the sake of the sanctification? This is the question that a number of places can deal with. The bottom line is that women do wash with a bracha of Anatilas Yadayim. they are considered part of the command of sanctifying for the daily service. What about the fact that they may be exempt from davening Shachos and Mincha? So basically they said that when the sages initially made their decree, they didn't go into the details of who particularly is obligated in the period. They decreed upon all the Jewish people. And that's on that basis, everyone, men and women, wash hands in the morning. On that basis also, the Chabad custom is to wash hands in the morning with a blessing, even if you didn't sleep at night. Same idea. Initially, if you want to say the whole reason of the washing is to get rid of the impure spirit, then how can you wash if you didn't sleep at night? There's no impure spirit. There's nothing to get rid of. So why do you have to wash? And that's why many people do not wash with a blessing if they didn't sleep at night. But nonetheless, our custom.
What happens if you go to sleep like normal time, like 11 o'clock, and then you... Sometimes I wake up at like 3, 4 in the morning to go to the washroom or something, but then I automatically wash my hands as I've woken up.
Right.
That's right?
Right.
Or should you wait?
Okay, hold that thought. I just want to finish this.
Sorry.
And so just hold that for a moment. So it's the same way that we're saying that when the sages made a decree, they didn't go into the details of are you exactly in that category, that you have the impure spirit, you're getting rid of it for the sake of time for Shacharis. That's the reason that they made the decree, but they didn't make exceptions to it. The populace, the logic of saying a blessing, even if you didn't sleep at night and you didn't necessarily contract the impure spirit, is also due to that we made a decree that every day is new. Every day you wash your hands to sanctify yourself, Hashem, even if the reasons aren't exactly the same each day. Regarding your question, we discussed that last week, and we said that someone wakes up in the middle of the night. So if they plan on going back to sleep, and it's before daybreak, which is about 2 hours before sunrise, they should wash. Don't do so. But if it's after daybreak or night, then they have to wash their hands before they continue. Based on what we explained earlier, that we don't walk 4 amos without the Negel Wasser washing our hands. The custom is recorded in a number of places that we prepare it next to our beds before we go to sleep, so we have it available. I just want to touch upon a few points here. Does the water be covered? Should it be covered? Or can it remain open?
Because you're sleeping, there's negative entities maybe surrounding you.
Right. So there is a halacha which states mayim shenisgalu, liquids that have been left open in an area are forbidden to being drunk. You're not allowed to drink them.
Anything, right?
What's the reason? There's 2 reasons. A halachic legal reason is because we're afraid of a poisonous or venomous reptile such as a snake. Went ahead, had a little bit to drink, and when they don't just take, they also give. And what did they give? The deadly poison.
Like,
So therefore the Chachamim made a decree, it's forbidden to drink liquids that have been left in an open area without supervision, as maybe a snake or any other venomous creature has helped himself to a few drops of water and left his donation inside. And then the person will drink it and die.
okay.
Second reason is the impure spirits love open liquids. They hang out there. That's the meeting place. As teenagers, our Rabbi used to tell us, you see, we always told you the canal. It's where all the boys and girls would hang out. This is where the klippas hang out, by the water, by the canal. In any event, it's a place where, according to Kabbalah, there is a gathering of the spirits, and therefore we don't leave it open. Bottom line is that today, since it's not common anymore to have venomous creatures in the open vicinity of the areas that one leaves the water, therefore we're not careful about this anymore. So practically, if you left a bottle of water open in your home, if your home is not a home that has venomous reptiles, then you don't have to worry about this. If, however, you went camping overnight and you left your water bottle open, then it's a problem, because out in the open, of course, there's venomous there's venomous snakes, there's venomous reptiles. So it all depends on the situation, all depends where this is taking place. So that's all regarding drinking. What about using to wash? Bottom line is like this. From the letter of the law, it is completely permitted to wash negel Wasser with water that was left out in the open, even in the open of an area that has reptiles that are venomous that may have junk from it.
That's
However,
weird. It doesn't make sense because if a person's sleeping, there's impurity, and the water uncovered is supposed to indicate impurity. So why would you wash your hands to be pure with something that's supposed to indicate impurity?
we're ruling that it doesn't get impure. The same way that the snakes don't go to it, so too the impurity don't go to it.
Okay.
When protected from venomous snakes, it's protected from the Ruach Ra. Let's not forget what is responsible for all the evil spirits in the world, the Nachash. Right?
Snake.
The snake. So where the snakes can't get to, where they don't get to, the evil spirits stay away. Nonetheless, some meticulous Jews are particular to cover their negel Wasser. The son of the Shlach Kaddish is known to have been particular in this. He would cover the negel Wasser at night. However, as I said before, this is not required from the letter of the law. Regarding the minhag of Chabad Chassidim in this, it's understood that while the Tzemach Tzedek was particular to cover his negel Wasser, this was not a custom of the masses. It was not a directive for the public for this to be done.
It'd be a good marketing idea, though, to sell those.
Yeah, they do. They do have them, but more for kids.
Because if you kick it in the middle of the night,
Correct. So that's for kids. For kids, is more of a worry that would happen. Usually, adults are a little more careful, but the truth is, it can happen also with an adult. But yeah, you're right. And that's why, not because of the halachic aspects, but because of the spilling aspects. That it's. I gave a share of this a number of years ago, and someone saw me buying, and it was in the share. Saw me buying a negel Wasser with a cover. They said, "I don't understand." You said, "You don't need to do it, and it's not the Chabad custom." Like, you're right, but I don't want to have it spill in my kid's room every night. It's you're allowed to be practical. So there's no isser, but there's no necessity. There's no necessity to cover it. As I said, some Jews are meticulous. This is a chumrah that someone wants to do, they could do. However, that's only regarding to leaving it uncovered next to your bed. What about leaving it under your bed? Oh. So here already we have another more severe issue, as food left under the bed, the Ruach Ra, nothing to do with the snakes. It has nothing to do with the snake halacha. It has nothing to do with the liquids being left open. Being left under a bed of sleeping, the spirits hang out in that area, and because of that, the best thing is not to place it under the bed. And if you place it under the bed, even covering it won't help. If I slept on my bed and left cans of tuna under my bed, according to many poskim, those cans of tuna now have evil spirits that can never be removed, and feed it to your neighbor's cat, as they say. Don't eat it. Don't give it to someone you like. Bottom line. We don't rule this way, by the way. Bottom line is that it remains kosher.
You don't rule this way? You could eat it?
It's a big machlekes. Bottom line is that b'diavad, if you left food under your bed, we are lenient to permit eating the food. It's not in Chabad custom. Chabad custom, we're stringent in it, but I'm saying for the general populace, and even for Chabad custom, the halach is that it's mutter to eat, but we are particular to avoid eating it because of the evil spirit. As we said before, the evil spirit is not some monster that, that's going to attack you in the night. It's the Yetzer Hara that comes and suddenly changes a person's mood from being so enthusiastic about coming to class on Sunday morning, and suddenly they are so tired and just like the pillow so much more. That's the evil spirit's effect on the person. A story that I heard from Rav Shalom Lakay and the Rav of Beitar, it's a very interesting prophetic story that he said, that happened in 1962, in 770. He was there in his kfutza years, as known, the students after they graduated from the college equivalents here in Eretz Yisrael of Yeshiva G'dayla. They go to, 21 years old, they would go to New York to learn by the Rabbi for a year. And he had a friend that was there that wasn't very strong in Yiddishkeit. Wasn't very, was having his struggles in different customs and in Hagim and Halachos. And one of the things that he wasn't careful in doing is he didn't prepare Negel Vaser next to his bed in the morning. And he, as a friend, tried to nudge him and he got into a whole conversation with him. One Thursday night, he got into a whole conversation with him, asking, why don't you do this? And he basically told him all these excuses. He started saying, sometimes it spills. I wake up for the bathroom. It's annoying, and goes through a whole bunch of different things that happens so that he doesn't want to set it up, and he'll just walk anyways. He said it's mutter min adin. I follow this opinion. I follow. We said last week the story of the tradition of the Gra with Avram Ager. In any event, that very Shabbos, 2 days later, Friday Shabbos, the Rebbe had a Farbrengen, and he was by it. They were both sitting next to each other by the Farbrengen of the Rebbe, and in the middle of the talk, the Rebbe suddenly turns to them and looks at them and starts talking about Nagelwasser. And starts talking about Nagelwasser, about the mitzvah of Nagelwasser and the importance of washing hands in the morning. And he then begins saying, and there are certain Jews that they give all these excuses for why they don't wash Nagelwasser next to the bed. And he started listing the excuses that this person gave. They're afraid. I looked up the Sikha. The Rebbe said in the Sikha that they're afraid that the Nagelwasser is going to spill. Began listing off, and this person sitting next to him, saying that the Rebbe, is basically reading their conversation that took place a few days earlier. So of course the student understood the seriousness of the matter, and he began being careful in this. I'll mention one more story he said, similar to this, also that same year. It was an American individual who from New York, who he was friends with, that also had, was having his struggles. And basically the guy disappeared from the yeshiva for 2 weeks. No one knew what happened to him, where he went. And what he was doing. And he came back after 2 weeks, and he was talking to him. Rosh Hashanah was talking to him in the corridor in front of the Rebbe's office, which is known as Gan Eden Atachnin, in the upper part of 770. And all of a sudden, the Rebbe opens up the door. And they both freeze, freeze out of fear. And the Rebbe comes out, and his back, the way they were facing, Rosh Hashanah was facing the Rebbe with the Rebbe open. They're talking to each other. His back is basically facing the Rebbe. He's not moving. And he says that the Rebbe is just standing there staring at him, at this boy that he's talking to. And the Rebbe then went inside his room and slammed the door. That's what he said. So he was freaked out. He didn't understand what happened here. It was very strange. So the boy asked him what just happened. So he told him that the Rebbe came out, was basically staring at us, staring at you, staring at us, and then went in and slammed the door. So he said he knows what I did. That's basically what this boy said. What he did do was he went to Canada and had a little did some terrible things against Jewish law. Went on a little vacation from Judaism. That's basically what he did in that 2 weeks. Okay.
I actually had the same thing happen to me with the Sadiq in Yerushalayim. I went to go see him for a bracha, and he did not like me at all. And so I think it was the same thing. He saw things that I did in my past. He totally, I felt like, he's like, here, just go.
You don't shoot us.
I know, but I was doing tshuva slowly. I was just starting to become a bal tshuva. But there was something he felt. That's why I can, believe this story so much, is because I experienced it. It was kind of scary. It was like...
Okay, where do we pour the water into? So this was your question. What do we do with the water once it is used for the washing? So that water is absolutely pure. The bas melech is now in the water. So we have to be very careful with this water. The halacha is brought down in the Shulchan Aruch that we do not pour it onto the ground. We don't want anyone drinking from it. We don't even give it to the cat. Not even your neighbor's cat.
No.
We don't give it to anybody. We get rid of it, throw it in the toilet, let it go to waste. Because of this, we also don't use a very beautiful vessel for Nagelwasser. You shouldn't buy, they shouldn't start making in the Chabad silver factory, they shouldn't start making beautiful, pure silver Nagelwasser basins. Not proper. We don't need to honor Bas Melech to that degree. We honor her enough when we sin. We don't have to honor her also with putting on a silver platter, and therefore that should not be done. It should be a disgusting vessel, etc. And what do you do with the water? So can you spill it into your kitchen sink? So it's as follows. If your kitchen sink has things inside of it, certainly it should not be spilled. Absolutely not. This is referring to the washing next to the bed, because that water is impure. And now you're going to get that impure water on your vessels, so that certainly should not be done. And even though you can argue, but it's the dishes, and dishes are going to get washed, it's true, that is true, but nonetheless it is not, it's not a good thing to have it around. It should just be poured in a different area. But if your sink is empty and there's nothing in it, so there isn't as much of an impediment against pouring it there.
So when you have non-frozen guests that wash in your sink, you make sure there's nothing there that they're washing over.
Again, if it's things that, are, let's say you're defrosting the meat, for your children, and they're going to be washing over that, that's a problem. That's a big problem. But if it's vessels that are anyways going to get washed, then it's not really such a big deal. We discussed last week that, if you don't have a basin available, then you can even use a pot and then go ahead and wash it and then reuse it in a time of need. But even in that case, we already mentioned from the Amudei Shanaim by the author Maskaras HaShulchan, who writes that, in his opinion, majority of the illnesses that occur are due to people not being careful in this.
Wow.
So it is something that one should try to avoid. If it happened, then you just go ahead and you wash it, you clean it. What I told people to do in this situation is that they should take a pot and put a plastic bag in the lining of the pot. And then you're pouring it into the bag. The water is not actually going to touch the metal of the pot. Then you avoid it according to all approaches. Okay, there's a lot of details here regarding how to wash in the morning, and we're going to skip most of those details, unless you want to do them. Maybe we'll just do a short version, a summary. Thank you. Okay, so there are various different approaches amongst Poskim regarding the validity of washing in the morning, how it's done in a valid way, or what's invalid. It's just like when we wash for bread, there are different halachos involved. So bottom line is like this. I'm just going to give a quick summary of this, like a checklist of what's done. Just like washing for bread, so too washing in the morning. Most of the laws are identical according to the final ruling of the Alter Rebbe. Not all poskim agree to this. Other poskim say there are a lot more leniencies in morning washing versus the washing for bread. That would mean that initially one has to use a vessel to pour the water from. It does not help to simply turn on the sink. Regarding the order, so what's written in the Talmud and later on in the Zohar, that the impurity is only removed if A, one washes each hand 3 times, and B, that it's alternated. That's the Zoharic edition. You have to alternate. Yes, you have to alternate between the hands. Meaning, if you did 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 times on one, 3 times the other, that is no good according to the Zohar. The Talmud won't have such an issue with that, but according to the Zohar, it doesn't accomplish the getting rid of the impurity. The Alter Rebbe novelizes that while you need the 3 alternating washings to get rid of the entire strength of Bas Melech, it does begin to diminish even with the first washing. So even if you only washed 1 time, there's a certain amount and level of this impurity that has already left the hands. As always, by washing, we lift the basin. We lift the vessel carrying the water with our right hand, pass it to the left hand, and then we back to the right hand, and the right hand washes the left hand. The left hand washes the right hand first if you're a righty. Okay, so the vessel is going from the right hand to the left hand. We don't just pick it up with the left hand. That's based on Kabbalah, that we always want to start everything with right, with chesed. So we first take it with the right and then pass it to the left. and we pour in the right hand first for a righty. A lefty, it's a debate of what they should do. This is a debate throughout many different laws of what should be done first, which hand should be done first if you're a lefty. That's one of the halachic problems they have, with amongst many other problems that lefties may face, such as a lefty kohen can work in the Beis Hamikdash. There's a lot of lefty rights that are left out. I think even in the United States, there used to be certain categorizations for lefties that viewed them as an abnormal or something. If I remember correctly, there was some, yeah.
I was told by a non-Chabad Rav that in the morning when you do the Negavasser, you don't have to take off your wedding rings, but when you do for bread, you do. What is Chabad?
So, regarding a chatzitza, as I said, there are a number of different approaches regarding if a chatzitza invalidates the washing in the morning or not. And bottom line is that we are careful not to have a chatzitza just like in the morning washing, just like washing for bread.
Okay.
So, but nonetheless, that doesn't necessarily mean that a ring is a chatzitza. Is a ring a chatzitza? So the halach is that if a ring is never taken off, not even when you go ahead and knead dough, you always leave your ring on. Then it's not chatzitza even for washing for bread, and certainly not for washing in the morning.
Okay.
However, practically, it should be taken off, and the reason is because while it's not considered an interval, the water that's on it remains tameh and can become untammed when you pour the second washing on it. So it can basically mess up the washing, not because of the chatzitza issue, because of another issue. So the best thing is to remove it.
Okay.
Those who don't remove it even for washing for bread have a on whom to rely, as I said before. Someone who removes it often all the time, then of course it will be a chatzitza, both for the morning and for bread.
Okay. Thank you.
There's a discussion of how much of the hand needs to be washed, to the wrist or to the fingers. This is both a discussion in washing for bread and in washing in the morning. Bottom line is that we wash the entire hand. Actually, washing in the morning is even more strict than washing for bread. You have to wash the entire hand. And even though there are opinions that are lenient, that is the final halacha. You have to wash the entire hand as the impurity spreads throughout the entire hand till the wrist, till over here. And therefore, you have to be very careful when you wash that the water goes everywhere. Quite often, if you pay attention, if you wash from certain positions, this area right here remains dry. So a person has to pay attention to that and be careful that the water gets everywhere, to turn his hand in a way that it gets washed while pouring.
No, it's interesting. It's like, then why don't you just jump out of bed and take a shower and wash your whole body? Why is it your whole body up here?
Correct, and that's why it's brought down that prior to davening shachris, one should bathe his feet, hands, and face.
Before chakras, okay.
Yes. But the impurity is not in that area.
Right.
It doesn't say you have to. It's a good thing, it says. It's a good thing for one to bathe himself, one to shower before davening.
If you showered the night before, is that okay?
Well, it has to do with, preparing yourself anew. You don't have to. A woman is also more lenient in this, being that it's even questionable whether she's chayiv, whether she's obligated to daven shachris. Certainly to obligate her to take a shower beforehand is... No one's obligating even a man. It's just a good thing to do so. That's one of the reasons men go to mikveh, correct, before davening. Okay, let's talk about a little bit the accustomed two forms of washings and when the bracha is said. So, ideally, we should say the blessing as soon as we wash next to our bed. We should wash next to our bed, not walk to, or wherever you are washing, and say the bracha as soon as you finish washing. Many do not do so, and what's the reason why? And should one do so? Should one say the blessing right away? So it's brought in Shulchan Aruch and many other poskim record this, that if a person has a need to use the bathroom, they cannot say a bracha. usually it happens to be that when you wake up in the morning, you've been on a bathroom fast for a number of hours, so you need to use it in the morning. So therefore, when you're washing, you cannot say the bracha now because you need to use the bathroom. So therefore, we don't say it right away. In a case, though, that one knows they went to the bathroom and they're not going to need the bathroom for a while, and they washed in the morning, they're definitely not going to need the bathroom right now, then they should say the bracha right away. As soon as they wash next to their bed, they should say the blessing. The reason for delaying the blessing is simply because of the need of a bathroom. So if you don't need the bathroom...
Rinsing your mouth first.
So rinsing your mouth before you say a bracha is not an obligation. It's an added cherry on top. It's a nice thing. It's a good thing. But because of that, delay the bracha, that we cannot. We don't have the halachic mandate to delay a blessing because of that, as there's no prohibition in saying a blessing. If you haven't rinsed out your mouth, how do we say brachas on Yom Kippur? How do we say brachas on Tisha B'Av? How do we say brachas on any fast day? We don't rinse our mouth. It's a good thing to do before you continue any other blessings. But this blessing, if you did not wash, if you don't need the bathroom, halacha is that a person, once again, most cases is a person will need to use it, if not now, in 10 minutes, in 20 minutes. So therefore, what we do is that first we wash without a blessing next to our bed. Then we go ahead and we wash a second time after that. That second washing is going to have the blessing. How is that second washing to be done? So basically, that second washing is going to follow again all the halachic requirements. We're going to use a vessel. We're basically redoing the washing for the sake of the bracha. So all the different halachas that apply to washing in the morning, when that first washing applied likewise by the second washing. This is one of the reasons why it is accustomed amongst Chabad Chassidim to use a towel to wash that second washing by the sink. Again, there's no impurity here. We already got rid of that impurity in the morning, but I already said earlier, the reason why we say the blessing is not necessarily because of the impurity, it's because we're preparing for our daily service. So right now, that second washing is representing that, that's what we're saying the blessing on. It's also going on the fact we got rid of the impurity earlier. It's like a continuation, stage 2. So the order that should be followed in such a case is that a person would follow all the regulations. And one of the regulations is, that I did not mention, is that you have to be careful when you're washing that none of the impure water touches the other hand, especially regarding the ring. The ring may not be a chatzitza, but impure water that gets on it, it is not able to be cleaned off, and if it gets back onto your finger is once again tameh. So to here, if you're washing without a towel, then any water that was on this hand after the first washing that got onto the vessel and now got onto this hand, did a little transfer, now makes it that this hand remains with that tummy water and can't be washed off. So to prevent any switch of waters from one hand to another, we use a towel. That's why a towel is used.
But it's the second washing. So there's no
Correct,
impurity anyway.
but so it does. There's no impurity of bas melech, but there is impurity of, as I said before, just like just like for bread when we're washing, there's an impurity there, not bas melech, but there's impurity there that we're required to wash for the sake of bread. So to negel vaser in the morning for the sake of starting your day, davening, etc., serving God, has that level of impurity. But you're right, this issue that you bring up between the two washings is not so clear cut. It actually doesn't say that the second washing in the Shulchan Aruch, it doesn't say that when you go wash the second time it has to be with all the regulations. Possibly you can understand the first washing, do with all the regulations. The blessing, you have to delay. You have no choice. You have to go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom, open the sink, go like this, and then say the blessing. The blessing is going when? On the original washing. But nonetheless, the custom practice is to follow all the regulations also on the second washing, and that's when we use the towel. If you didn't use a towel...
Sorry, is the second washing alternate hands?
Yes, everything. Just like the first one.
But you hold it with a towel.
So again, from the letter of the law, you don't have to. The main thing is just to make sure you're not trading waters from one end to another.
Why would
Practically.
you do that the first wash?
Right. So many have asked, why don't we do it the first time? Practically, the custom is not to do so. It's not... I don't have a good answer for you. I really don't. Let's not forget, the entire idea of using a towel is a stringency, a custom that came about maybe 100 years ago. It was initially only done by very select few chassidim. There was almost nobody who did that. It was like, the Rabbi, let's say the Tzemach Tzedek, the Rabbi Rashad, and maybe one or two other chassidim. when one of the Chassidim came to Rabbi Shab and said, "Wow, I really like that trick. I want to start using it as well." So no, you're not on the level yet. You can't wash regularly. No towel for you. Yeah. So it wasn't like everyone can just jump on the bandwagon of chumras. You have to be on a certain level to grab a chumrah. But this became widespread again, and for example, Hillel Parasha didn't use a towel, but he had 3 handles. So there were 3 handles on his negel Wasser cup. And by the way, most negel Wasser cups back and they only had 1 handle. The entire idea of the 2 handles is again a chumrah based on this idea, because you shouldn't switch. But back in the day, go do an excavation, get a negel Wasser cup from 200 years ago or 1,000 years ago. No one had 2 handle cups. Everyone had a 1 handle cup. So this is all based on the chumrah. So someone to have a 3 handle cup plus a towel is like. Okay. This second washing, being that it is an offshoot of the first washing, and really the blessing should have been said by the first washing, you just do it because of the bathroom use. Therefore, it has to be approximated as much as possible. The wording in the Shulchan Aruch in the beginning of chapter 6 is that a person should wash as soon as he wakes up, not to delay the washing, shouldn't delay the impurity. Then right away go to the bathroom, shouldn't delay that either, and right away go wash again. Because again, the main impurity was removed when next to your bed. How long can you delay the washing for? So how long can you delay the bracha for? So therefore it should be done right away. Those who take their time, they brush their teeth, they get dressed, they have a cup of coffee, they talk to someone, they look at their email, an hour later they're finally ready to wash the second time negel Wasser, it's not proper. They delayed for a full hour the saying of the bracha Netilas Yadayim from its original time of washing. Certainly those who wait to come to shul, that is certainly not proper to be done. If you want to do it together with your morning blessings, don't do it. If you're not saying your morning blessings right away, then separate the two different courses. You'll have first the morning blessing Netilas Yadayim with your washing, and then you can make up everything else later. Bottom line, halacha l'maisa, is that we always approximate the bracha b'asher yatzar and l'kainis hama to the bracha Netilas Yadayim. So it's a 3-package deal. For reasons we'll explain later when we get to the morning blessings, but bottom line, that is what's done. That's what's supposed to be done. So this second washing should be done as close as possible, and you'll then go ahead and say asher yatzar and l'kainis hama, and then you can take your time and make up the other blessings of the morning. But that blessing, because of Netilas Yadayim, should be done right away. There is no halacha that requires one to be wearing his suit and jacket when saying Netilas Yadayim. He can wear his pajamas. That's how it was done originally. All the morning blessings were done in your pajamas except for one, Malbish Harumin. But before Malbish Harumin, you were still wearing pajamas. So there's nothing wrong with saying these blessings in pajamas. If you're doing it to approximate the blessing, there's no problem. As we said already earlier, if you don't need to use the bathroom, you're supposed to say the bracha next to your bed.
Do you have to have socks on your feet when you do it? No.
There is no obligation to be wearing socks on your feet when you say a bracha. The obligation of wearing socks on your feet is only if you're davening Shemona Esrei, and only in areas that do not wear, in only areas that are careful not to appear in public with uncovered feet. In areas that are not careful about, that people walk around with sandals without socks, then even in front of the Shemona Esrei, you're allowed to, certainly by morning blessing. So there's no obligation to be, if you're talking about tznius, there is no obligation for a woman to be tznius when she's saying a bracha. Tznius has to do, we went through this in our tznius course, it has to do with if men are around, it has to do with even in privacy, but something that's allowed to be uncovered between you and God is allowed to be uncovered also when you're saying a blessing. Something that's not allowed to be uncovered between you and God, that's between you and God. It has nothing to do with the bracha. The bracha is not affected by that. So whether you did or didn't say a bracha is nothing that doesn't change the equation. It doesn't make the saying of the bracha more mutter or more asr if a woman is not properly covered.
Can I ask a question about in these bathrooms where the toilet is in one room and there's sink and shower in another room?
Yeah.
You say a bracha in the sink shower room?
So the halach is that a bathroom, because of what we use it for to expel the waste, so too that's the area where the sitra achra is found, the evil spirits. And that's a place that it's biblically forbidden to learn Torah, say blessings, say God's name, etc. However, that's only in the closed area of the bathroom. The area that is the in front of it, which I use to wash my hands, if it's separate from the bathroom, then you can even say brachas and you can say ashiyatzer. Now, what makes it separate? So it has to follow the laws of mechitza according to halacha. So if you went into a public bathroom and they have their stalls for the bathroom, where people go, you close it, you lock it, you have the sink, they have a big ashiyatzer there. Can you say ashiyatzer there? It depends. If the stalls, which are of course private, it's not glass, you can't see through, and if they are less than 3 tefachim from the ground, that's when the door begins, then it is permitted. They are considered excluded from the sink area. It's as if it's 2 different rooms, assuming there's no bad smell, and you can do whatever you want. You can have a shachris there for all we care.
So
It is not considered.
it's like downstairs.
That's how in planes they make minyanim for shachris with a sefer Torah near where the bathrooms are. As that area has nothing to do with the bathroom. The bathroom has its own quarters, and this is its own
They
quarters.
bring
But
the Sefer Torah on the plane? I've never seen that.
some people. But if as many public bathrooms are mandated to do according to law of their municipality, to have more than 24 centimeters of space, I believe it's to check if somebody is stuck there or locked. It's for security reasons that they do this. For various reasons they require this, that there be usually 1 foot, 1 to 2 feet of space between the ground and the start of the stall. Then it's not a mechitza according to halacha, and you're all in the same room. So you cannot say a bracha in that area. But in your house, absolutely. You can say a bracha there, it's not a problem. Close the door, you won't see the toilet, you can say a blessing.
What if somebody's in the middle of davening chakras with maybe their sister that's not religious, she opens the bathroom door and she keeps it open and you can't talk.
Don't look at the
chakras.
toilet.
Okay.
If you're not looking at the toilet, you can continue davening. So
Okay.
turn to a different area.
Okay. So could you go, Or is that
Well, technically, if there's something that's halachically stopping one from being able to continue davening, you are allowed to speak. You're saying Shemona Esrei?
Yeah, Shemona Esrei.
Right, Shemona Esrei.
Can
So
you-
in such a case, you can even walk to the door and close it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Some people are accustomed in such cases to slam it shut, not just to close it. To make a point.
To make it funny.
Okay. Can you daven or learn Torah next to the impure water? So from the letter of the law, it's not a problem. As I said before, back in the day, they used to say the bracha as soon as they washed. Right? And even today, we can say the bracha as soon as we wash. But nonetheless, it's brought a number of paiskim that we avoid saying words of Torah next to this water, because of it has impurity, and therefore we don't learn Torah next to it and say brachas next to it. What do? Either get rid of it, or you can cover it, or you can pour another revius of water into it, another 86 milliliters of water. So if you don't like having impure water next to your bed, what you can simply do, or let's say you're 2 people, you and your spouse, and you're not throwing it out, they're going to wake up an hour later, you don't want that impure water just sitting there. Don't use all the water in the cup. Leave 86 milliliters. It's not a lot. It's about this much. Okay, in the cup. When you're done washing, spill it out. And then you just got Bas Melech. Bas Melech is officially dead. Both from your hands and from the water. She's gone. She'll be back the next day, but not in this area. So that's a good way of how to get, avoid this issue. And then you can dive in, do whatever you want in the room with the water there. Again, there's not a clear halacha that prohibits this, so, if you're, let's say, in a public setting, a public area, you can't force someone to throw it out just because you want to daven. Back in the day, people used to sleep in shul on Yom Kippur night for different reasons. And people would wash Nigel Vaser there, and other people would be learning. Nobody would stop learning because of it. Everybody did what they did. And as I said, because from out of the law, there was not a clear prohibition here written down. When we're going through the 2 washing stages, right? First wash next to the bed, bathroom, and then wash again. In that situation, it's proper for a person to wash their face as well as their mouth beforehand. There are any ways they went to the bathroom, anything in the delay. then they can go ahead and they're anyways doing a second washing and do the delay of washing their face and hands. I said before, if a person also wants to get dressed, they don't want to say it in pajamas, they can technically do that as well. The main thing is to try to approximate it as much as possible,
Wait a minute.
not to delay too much.
This is what I do. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. When I wash in the morning, before I dry, I go like this.
Okay, you're asking a different question. You're asking, can the water that is on our hands, what is its status? Is it pure? Is it impure? Can I put it on my body, the water that I've washed with? So from the letter of the law, the answer is that it's pure, and therefore there is such a custom of when you're finished washing, you actually go like this to remove the, any mucus from your eyes.
Yeah.
But according to Kabbalah, we say that all 3 washings are impure. So you still have impure water on your hands, and that's why, according to Chabad custom, and according to custom of many of the Sfardim, and according to Kabbalah, we make sure to dry the hands before we say the bracha on the Netilas Yadayim. I'm going to discuss this momentarily.
And before you wash your face.
100%.
Wow.
So, because we don't want the impure water to get on us, or to say the bracha with impure water. Again, from the letter of the law, according to the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, it's not a problem. You don't have to dry your hands. The water is not impure. But, there is a chumrah. The Chabad custom is to be stringent in this matter of the drying the hands, which is basically an offshoot of the idea that it's still impure. So therefore, it's better not to put it on the face. If you want to, you can do a 4th washing for that. That's what someone mentioned last week. The Vilna Gaon and many others were accustomed to pour 4 times in order to get rid of the tuma of the 3rd washing.
So when you dry your hands on the towel, there's nothing left to transfer onto the towel? I mean, the towel...
The towel absorbs it, and it, the sitra achra is now gone because it's no longer water. Once it's absorbed in a solid, it's no longer considered a liquid. So he has to leave.
That's good. We don't want him around.
Brought down the Shulchan Aruch that after a person washes his face, he is to be very careful to dry it well. Otherwise, it can cause what I think today we acne.
Oh gosh.
Can lead to cracks in his skin or to boils. That's the word in the Shulchan. So we dry,
Chapped skin.
yeah. So we make sure to dry our face after this washing. Use a towel, not let it dry on its own. Interesting question, does this apply always? Well, it doesn't say it about always, it just says that when a person wakes up in the morning, should wash his face, feet, etc., and it says to dry the face. Regarding drying the feet, so here in the Shulchan Aruch brings the whole discussion that the person, basically there's a spiritual danger if a person doesn't dry his feet after bathing. This is any time in the day.
Wow.
And therefore it says a person must dry his feet before putting on his socks. However, bottom line is that we are not accustomed to be stringent like this today. People are lenient. The Rebbe once discussed this in a sikha. Also, other places can defend the practice. And they basically say a very interesting but general approach towards matters of when something is not a halachic prohibition, biblical or rabbinical, and it's just that it brings along there's some kind of danger involved. So if it's something that the public has already become used to doing, and ignores the adherence of being careful in it, then we adapt the verse in Tehillim, Shemer P'sayim Hashem, that Hashem guards the fools, and therefore you're guarded, you're protected because you're a fool. Hashem guards the fools. Fools don't know any better, so God guards them. So basically in certain areas, certain things that are written in sources that are sakana to do, we're considered fools regarding them. We ignore them. We do them anyways. And because it's the general populace that ignores it, meaning the general populace become foolish, so therefore we get that pasuk to protect us. It's an interesting maneuver, but it's used also regarding this, of the drying of the feet.
Why don't we use it against the drying of the face too?
The question is, has the populace become lenient in that? The Pesachim don't write such a thing. Regarding the feet, they do. I want a story of an individual who had major foot problems with athlete's foot, and there are different skin ailments in his feet, and basically the doctors forbade him from going to a mikveh, to any public area where people bathe, because of others contracting it and because of it getting worse on his own. And he says over that he was by the sikha that the Rebbe spoke about this subject, about drying the feet and the ailments it can cause. The person doesn't dry their feet beforehand. And this individual was actually told by the doctors not to dry his feet. And so the Rebbe was speaking about it, and the Rebbe explained how, even though that's the original halacha, today the people are no longer careful, so they have this protection, Shem Repsoim Hashem, that Hashem protects them, and even the Chatchil, you don't have to be careful about this, and you can put on your socks without drying your feet. And he says that it got better.
I mean, once he started drying his feet, he got there.
No. He left it wet. He wouldn't dry it.
He left them wet.
Okay. We're going to conclude the subject of Natil Sedayim in the morning with a few more points regarding waking up, if you woke up in the middle of the night, if you went to sleep during the day, etc. So if a person woke up in the middle of the night, let's say 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're going back to sleep, so we already discussed the earlier part of the restrictions and to their bed, so it depends. If they are going back to sleep before daybreak, then Bas Melech goes away during your current washing and will come back as soon as you sleep, another half hour at night. So you have to wash again.
What's daybreak, like
You have to look at a Zmanim calendar. There's many different, it depends on the city and it depends on the opinion. There's like 7 opinions.
Oh. Just do it just to be safe.
The latest opinion is basically 72 fluctuating minutes before sunrise. So let's say now sunrise is 6:45. So they would have, it's not even 72 minutes, it's fluctuating minutes, which is determined by the degree of the sun's distance from the horizon. So if you really want to know, if you're into a little bit of astronomy, you have to do 16 degrees when the sun is over the horizon. That's the latest time of daybreak. Once you go to sleep after 16 degrees before the horizon, you can be assured Bas Melech is not going to come back in such full force. If you're going to sleep before Leisa Shachar, you would still need to wash again next to your bed. It's the same impure spirit. There's no difference. Okay, same impure spirit is there. Now regarding the blessing, when should the bracha be said? So, if you woke up before midnight, even though you have the impurity, you cannot say a bracha. So you have to wash, but you don't wash with the blessing. The blessing, as we said, is why? Not because of the impurity, but because of you're preparing for a new day. Before midnight, it's not considered a new day. The halach is that before midnight, you can never wash with a bracha. If you woke up after midnight, then you have a choice. Either wash now the first time with a bracha, you're going back to sleep, you can wash when you wake up later on with a bracha. But if you woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's past daybreak, and you wash your one time, and you're going back to sleep for another 2-3 hours. What did we say earlier? A person is not allowed to delay the second washing from the first washing. So in such a situation, a person should already go do his second washing, do his 3 blessings, and go back to sleep. We have to realize that the idea of sleeping past daybreak in the eyes of the sages was viewed as something as only the princes did. Only those who never had to work a day in their life, enjoy life, as they say. Who would sleep after daybreak?
People in stuff.
What are you? You're 60, 70 years old. What are you? You're already on pension. You're already retired. Who wakes up after daybreak? Who's still sleeping after daybreak, right? Sunrise. I'm talking about sunrise.
Much earlier back then.
I understand, 100%. And today people work night jobs. Today people work all the time. It's a little different, and we agree that it's different. I'm just saying, back in the day. And the question is, Bas Melech, you think Bas Melech has gone with the change of schedule, or is she staying to her same old schedule as always? She has no reason to be up any later than usual. She only comes around at night. So there is a legitimate question. Does the evil spirit of Bas Melech only come to night sleepers or also to day sleepers? what we call owls, right? There's someone who took a nap during the day. They slept for a half hour. Where's Bas Melech in the picture? Is she invited? Is she interested or not? This is a major machlekes. Some say that no, Bas Melech is only if you sleep at night. Does not come by the day. It's the night together with sleeping. It's both together. Others say it has nothing to do with sleeping at all. It's just the nighttime, and therefore they say if you stayed up the whole night, you still have to wash. And that's why the halacha is even those who don't wash with a bracha always wash hands in the morning after they stay up the whole night. Whether a blessing can be made is a different discussion because, as I said before, I discussed this earlier, that the idea of saying a blessing is not necessarily connected with the idea of the impurity. It has to do with refining yourself for another day. Did the sages establish this in that situation? So that's a machlekes. Some say it, some don't. Chabad does. But regarding the washing, everybody washes just in case Bas Melech comes along. But we don't know for sure. We don't know for sure. There isn't a clear ruling in Shulchan Aruch.
Where does this name Bas Melech come again from?
That's just its name. Who named it? I have no
It's really
idea.
weird.
I
So
don't know
even if we
who-
sleep during the day, since we don't know for sure if Bas Melech is involved, we wash.
We wash, correct. So too during the day. During the day as well, there is a dispute. There's a question whether Bas Melech comes during day sleep or only during nighttime, and therefore we wash, of course, without a bracha, and we are not careful with all the other things next to your bed. We're not careful with any of that stuff. That's only if you slept at night, 60 breaths. You slept for
Okay, but
half
you
hour.
said that if you sleep on the couch, you take a nap for longer than
Correct.
30
Slept
minutes.
at night, but at night.
Oh, only at
At
night.
night, only at night.
So once it turns dark, not like
Correct.
past-
Once it turns dark, that's when we know for sure Bas Melech is coming to visit. You know for certain she already gave her thumbs up. She, agreed to the visitation. However, if it's during the day or you're not sleeping at night, no idea if she's coming or not. So we'll watch just in case, but we don't have to go to the extremes of all the restrictions of the Zayhar that we mentioned. So we don't have to watch next to our bed, and we don't have to follow all of those stringencies.
If you go to the bathroom in the night, say at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you wash your hands after you've used the bathroom, do you say a Shir Yotzar?
So ideally, a person should say Ashiyotzer as soon as they receive the benefit, and therefore Ashiyotzer should be said right away.
Yeah.
However, some delay it to later in the morning, and they go back to sleep, especially if you're half asleep anyways, you're not really in your right mind.
To do that.
Instead of Ashiyotzer, they say Bar Nefesh, they say Bar Chasamos, and say something else. So,
Say all three.
so
Get it right.
There's that story, Rabbi, that one of his Hasidim fell asleep in a room during the day because there's such a stink of tumah in the room.
So that story is recorded in the Sefer Shmuos V'Sipurim of Nachman of Khan. And he writes that there was a certain chassid of the Alter Rebbe. Basically, let me give the background to that. In the Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe rules in chapter 4 that, as rules the Mechaber in the Shulchan Aruch as well, that we're not sure what's going on during the day. We're not sure if Bas Melech comes along or doesn't. It's not clear. And don't forget, there's half the world is sleeping at night when you're sleeping during the day. She has, she's kind of busy. So it's not clear. It's a big suffix, and therefore they say it's just proper to wash. It's not like an obligation, and you don't follow the restrictions. But in the siddur, it's implied from the Alter Rebbe in his siddur that he rules that you don't have to wash at all. He concluded there is no impurity by daytime sleeping. So it seems that in the Alter Rebbe. So it seems that in his siddur he retracted it from his Shulchan Aruch. And this is the opinion of some Mekubalim. So now comes along the story with this chassid. So there was a chassid of the Alter Rebbe who wanted to get in on the saying of certain maimarim that the Alter Rebbe used to say for selecting the Alter Rebbe used to have set times of saying Hasidic discourses for the public, and he'd also say Hasidic discourses for private groups. And there were different distinctions. You had some groups which were the most elite Chassidim, other groups his family, other groups were just his daughters. He had a Chassidic Maimon that he said just to his daughters. Even the Mitzvah Rebbe wasn't allowed to be there. Just the daughters were there. And there were times that for the simple Jews. the simple Pasha Yidden. So the Chassidim wanted to hear all of them. They don't segregation. So basically, one Chassid decided to hide himself in the room where the simple Chassidim would hear a private mime from the Alter Rebbe. He hid in a closet, and he fell asleep while he was there. And when the Alter Rebbe came, the commotion happened. He suddenly woke up, and the Alter Rebbe, before beginning the mimer, says, "I can't begin the mimer because I smell impurity in the room." And the Alter Rebbe did the sniffing, opened the closet, and of course found this chassid there, and he said, "Go wash your hands. You have impurity on your hands." So from there, Reb Shmuel Greiner Mesterman said, "You see that in practicality, we see the Alter Rebbe did accept the approach that there is an impure spirit on the hands even when you sleep during the day." Okay, any questions on hand washing? We're going to move on to another subject. There's more to cover, but we're doing just a summarized version of our main goal here is to discuss what's relevant to women specifically. Okay, there's a whole discussion in the Shulchan Aruch in the same chapter regarding washing hands during other times, nothing to do with waking up in the morning or waking up from sleep during the day. But during other times you're doing things. The evil spirit, there's, I mentioned earlier that there's previous classes that there isn't just one type of evil spirit. There's not just one bad guest. There are thousands and tens of thousands of different types and qualities of evil spirits. And each one comes from different times. This one comes during this time, this comes during that time. And we have to know how to get rid of them, how to avoid them. We're all aware of the idea of mood swings. We go through mood swings all the time. Happy to sad, we are innately and naturally bipolar, not in the medical condition necessarily, hopefully, but in terms of that, we always are changing in our personalities and changing in our moods. It happens, and some of that has to do with the Ruach Rais that are attracted to us. A Ruach, as we said before, can change a person's attitude, can change a person's feeling and emotion. So there's a whole list of things that can contract Ruach Ra, of which we make sure to wash the hands to get rid of it. So we're going to go through some of these things. This is in addition to the fact that there's certain impurities and filths that if they get on the hand, you're not allowed to learn Torah or daven with them on your hand, not because of any impurity, but because it's dirty. So so we're going to go through those two. They're not always unanimous, they're not always the same. Sometimes things don't bring impurity but are dirty, so you can't learn Torah and daven. And sometimes other things, they're not dirty, but they bring impurity, so you got to get rid of it, but you are allowed to daven and learn Torah. So the things that are, there's 14 things mentioned, and we're going to list them now. One who arises from his bed. Next week we'll go into each one of these in detail, okay? One who gets out of his bed, basically, even if you didn't sleep. You went to lie down to read your newspaper. You read a book, okay? The area of the bed, not Bas Melech, but a distant relative comes instead. A person who leaves the bathroom, there we do know his name. I don't know the name of all of them, but the bathroom one we also know his name. Anyone know what his name is? So the English version is Tony. Tony. The Hebrew version is Taf Nun Yud. Tani.
Okay, so you're saying that.
So even if you don't go to the bathroom, just by being in the
Right,
bathroom.
right. Going to the bathroom or even entering the bathroom, Tony hangs out there.
So you're saying that we need to.
So next week in Rosh Hashanah, we're going to go through all the details, if it applies to today's bathrooms, and how fanatic this person would be about this. But I'm just going through the general list. Next week we'll go through these. We will dissect each one. Okay? Same thing with the bathhouse. That's also Tony's place. Tony's bathhouse, right? A mikvah, a bathhouse. Then we have the known-named ones. I don't know the names of these, of who visits the person. One who cuts his nails. Okay? That's another impurity. One who removes his shoes. The shoes, it's not just dirt, it's also impurity that comes with it.
Leather shoes,
All shoes.
all shoes.
All shoes, yeah. We'll get to the details, but all shoes. Shoes, also feet. If you don't wear shoes, the person who touches his feet, it's impurity. The ground is an area where the klippos
It's just the bottom of your
hang
feet.
out. We'll go into details, but it's mainly where it touches the ground. The ground is an area where the evil spirits hang out more. So that's why the shoes and the feet have that specific restriction. Any covered area of the body, an area of the body that's normally covered, you know, it's almost covered all the time. If a person touches it, they have to wash their hand. They would have to wash their hands. There's impurity, so a person
like
has an itch.
not just wash.
Oh, details next week. But no, that's not correct. You don't have to do Nagelwasser. It's just any water, but we'll go into the details next week.
Okay.
Some of these things, the custom is to do Nagelwasser. We'll go into which one of this list do we do Nagelwasser, which one not. Scratching one's head, you see people all the time, even in the middle of davening. Again, you have to wash your hands. That, in that case, not only do you have an evil spirit, but you're not allowed to continue davening or learning.
What if you have a tickle under a shaitel when you scratch your head?
Then first it's a shaitel, use your shaitel, do it over your shaitel. If it's not using...
So it's fine if you scratch your shaitel?
Yeah, if a person takes his yarmulke and goes like this, it's not a problem. If a person takes his beard fingers and puts it to his beard hair, then it's a problem. If a person sticks his hand down his back to get an itch, it's not a problem. You just got to get rid of the impure spirit that came. Get rid of him. Lice carry an impure spirit. A person who touches lice, or a person who checks hair for lice, need to wash your hands afterwards. Intimacy with a husband and wife. After intimacy, if there's an impure spirit, it requires washing the hands. Visiting a cemetery, a person who leaves a cemetery needs to wash the hands. A person who touched a corpse needs to wash his hands. Someone who does tara. A person who's in the same room as a corpse, someone's doing shmira on a corpse, has to wash his hands afterwards. A person who attended a funeral has to wash his hands afterwards. And after a haircut, we wash our hands. God willing, next week we will go into all the detailed laws of this matter. And I can already mention now, there is absolutely no difference in a man and a woman in these halachos. They are one and the same.
Interesting, you didn't mention animals.
No, we will discuss that is not on the list, and there's a reason it's not on the list. Someone who touches, there is no halachic impure spirit. There may be, your doctor may tell you, rabies or something else.
It's like I just heard that if you touch a cat or a dog, and then you should wash your hands before you learn Torah. Just saying I have tumor or whatever.
Not required.
I thought that's the big thing.
Well, that blew that.
So, guy, if I shook hands with a guy, I have to wash my hands afterwards. Yeah.
First of all, I want to say thank you because you answered my question on the phone when I called you about the name. That was neat.
Okay,
And
you're welcome.
second of all, I have a question, and it's like, I don't know, it's a halal question because it's talking about sleeping, and something happened to me, and I don't know what it means, and it's really making me nervous. Friday night, I went to sleep, and I had a dream that I had a stomach ache, a terrible stomach ache, and I told my husband, please get me some Sprite, and he went to the store and he said, I'm sorry. And he came back, he's like, Elise, I'm sorry, they didn't have any Sprite. And I'm like, I'm really in pain, Yosef, you really have to help me. I'm like really hurting. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I had a stomach ache. Terrible.
Right.
But I'm like, it's making me nervous because it was in my dream and it really happened. Like,
Well, that's why you dreamt it, because
you're in pain, you
So-
felt the pain, but then you were
So
trying
back
I've
in
never
the
had
day-
that happen before.
That happens to me. You have a pain and you dream about it and you want to fix it, but you're not awake to fix it. But you're dreaming that you want to
Turn it
fix
off.
it.
It's still on.
I've never had
So,
that
It's
before.
a dream and you want to go to the toilet in the computer, but you can't
Did
find
it
a clean
record?
toilet.
For whatever
And
reason,
you're
my
walking
recording
in your
didn't
dream,
do
you're
it.
like, why is there no clean toilets? And this one has a little loft and this one's dirty, and you spend the whole night dreaming.
Okay,
Okay, so you've had
So-
this happen.
Yeah, that's
Okay, so now I don't feel like
Do you want my answer?
Yeah.
I know, my brother-in-law